Sorry. So, built in the 16th century, 1530s. That's the time we are in. Of course, built by the popes. This actually was the residence of about 30 popes. They lived in there. However, today, by the way, many famous artists have worked in the Queen Alley. One of them was John Lorenzo Bernini again. Today, however, is the seat of the President of the Italian Republic.
Oh,
he lives there and he works there.
Okay.
So, yes.
Wow.
In terms of extension, slightly bigger than the Louvre Museum, so it's really huge. By the way, the main entrance is on the other side.
On the other side.
Yes, it's simply huge. If you want to stop somewhere, just tell me. It's okay. Pinocchio. Many different Pinocchio.
A little bit larger, yeah.
Yes.
Is it a bit larger?
A little bit, yeah. It's massive. Yeah,
Okay.
You want to try to get closer?
We can do something maybe. When I explain, maybe it's better if we are here.
Okay.
If you want to take pictures, you can go that way, because all together it's a bit difficult. There are many people.
Alright.
So, okay, I'll explain about the fountain. Now, it was built relatively lately. It's relatively recent, between 1731 and 1761, in the space of 30 years. Now, notice this, 30 years. That's a lot, because normally there are whole entire buildings which were actually built in 24, 25 years. The fountain was actually built in 30 years. That's really a lot comparatively. Now, the sculptures were made by Piero Bracci, a sculptor during the 18th century. Now, by the way, you can see on the facade two different names. When we see the names on the facades, it's really tricky, because in general, in the facades, you should be able to read the name of the person who actually built them. But sometimes it's tricky, because in that case you got the Pope which actually started it, Pope Clement XII, and below it the Pope which actually finished it, Pope Benedict XVI. First thing, Trevi. The name actually comes from Latin trivium, still today similar to Italian Trevie, which means three streets, because here you got the intersection of three streets. 1, 2, 3. So 3 streets, Trevi, and even today the neighborhood is known as Trevi, that's the name. Now, in terms, by the way, notice one very important thing, the water level, it's very low in comparison to, it's really low. And by the way, the facade also tells you which aqueduct also brought water here. It's the Aqua Virginem, Aqua Virgo, also known, virgin water, literally speaking. That's one of the ancient Roman aqueducts. In terms of the symbology, as I told you, fountains always have something to do with history or mythology having to do with seas and oceans. Now, the statue in the middle is Oceanus. Now, Oceanus is a Titan. In theory, according to Greek mythology, Titans are the parents of gods. And actually, Oceanus is the son of Neptune and Gaia. Neptune is heaven or the sky, Gaia is earth. And Oceanus is also father to Poseidon, god of the seas. Now, by extension, if you want, the statue represented the oceans, or so to say, the ocean, because of course, today we divide the oceans in 4 oceans. We've got the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian and Arctic. Not very known the Arctic one, but however they're all linked. We can assume that when they made the fountain they considered the oceans to be only one. So Oceanus meaning all the waters on earth. And on the sides you got 2 horses which represent calm water and stormy water. you can see that one actually behaves, the other one doesn't.
Right.
So that those represent the waters. So yes, now the Trevi Fountain was only built in the 1800s. By the way, before the Trevi Fountain, there were other fountains in this place, because of course fountains, as you can see, were works of art. However, they were also places where people could actually get water, because in that period, I mean, there weren't water pipes or tap water, so they also were useful for the people. However, the Trevi Fountain came in relatively lately, because they built it. The popes built it behind another building. Now, the buildings you see behind were not owned by the popes, they were owned by other families. So they had to have permission to build the fountains there, which they usually hadn't, but they were the popes, so they still managed to build the fountain. But it still took quite long. Now, as a statistic, generally speaking, every day 3,000 euros in coins, which is roughly $3,000, are actually launched in the water.
Oh wow.
So this is the big fountain where you actually throw coins. And by the way, those coins normally go to charitable associations. They generally help homeless people, or so they are generally used for a purpose.
How often do they empty it? How often do they empty it?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I would say every week at least, but anyway, yeah, because if you think about it, 3,000 euros a day, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's really a lot. Now, of course, to our cameras, because there have already been times which at night people came in to try and steal the coins.
Oh yeah.
But of course, the police came in and arrested the people,
Right,
because there were cameras around the fountain.
That makes sense.
It does, because if you think you can make 3,000 euros just by going to the fountain,
And they probably don't want people in the water either, so.
it's actually forbidden to go in the water. However, there are times, especially during summer, where temperature can actually go over 40 degrees Celsius, and you will see many tourists actually jumping in the water, but actually that would be forbidden.
Oh wow.
Yes. Now, if you want to make some pictures, that's fine. One of the entries is actually there. If you prefer the shadow, we could go there. Okay. So this is the Column of Marcus Aurelius. Have you watched by any chance the Gladiator, the movie?
Absolutely. One of the best movies ever.
Yes, I love
Further
it.
down because the light pole's right in the way.
Ah, the panel, yes.
Perfect.
So, this is the Column of Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. As I was telling Shane It has got to do with the movie The Gladiator,
Yes,
Russell Crowe.
yes, yes.
Now, of course, the
Marcus
movie,
Aurelius, yeah.
in the movie, many things were not actually accurate. But the beginning of the movie was actually accurate because the Emperor Marcus Aurelius actually sent many legions to Germania, what's today Germany. By the way, we have the name Germany, even in Italian it's still called Germania, because the ancient Romans called it Germania. Now, this column is from 190 AD, so it's got almost 3,000 years. As you can see, it's been carved from all throughout its length. If you couldn't wind it, it would have nearly 200 meters, and it's all been carved. Now, the inside is actually hollow. When the Romans, yes, they poured the stone, they actually hollowed it, and the inside's got a stair. Now, you might be able to see that you've got a few holes.
Yeah.
That's because in ancient times the Romans put torches inside not to light it at night.
Oh, okay.
The what?
To lit
To
it.
light it.
To
Oh,
light
okay.
it, yes.
Okay.
So you can see the holes?
Yep. There's a bigger one at the top.
And now, why is it important? As you can see, it's art, basically, but not just art. It's also a history account. Now, it actually recounts the battles which took place in what was Germany, along the river Danube, the longest river in Europe even today, between roughly 172 to 175 AD, which means in a space of 4 years. Now, why was the column so important? Because actually in 9 AD, that means a bit more than 150 years before Emperor Marcus Aurelius, Emperor Augustus, the first Emperor Roman in ancient Roman history, actually sent three whole legions. Now, every legion had nearly 7,000 men. That means
21,000.
20,000 men. They were completely annihilated along the Danube River. Now, Rome suffered a few major defeats throughout its history. It was a formidable military power. However, it did actually suffer a few heavy defeats. One of them was along the Danube River. Now, there is a reason for that, because actually Roman strength in battle was actually based on team building, if you want, the wall of shields, for example. There was also something else. When Romans fought in open field, every 30 to 60 seconds they fought against an enemy, they would be replaced by the man behind, because the man behind was fresh, so that the enemy would have every time a fresh soldier in front of himself. So it was all based on organization. However, when you fought in Black Forest, in Germany we've got the Black Forest with many trees, so very dense forest, you cannot really have those shield formations. That means it all comes to one-on-one fighting, and actually Germanic and Gaulish soldiers, today Germany and France, were actually stronger physically. They were generally bigger, they had bigger weapons, and that means that 1-to-1 they would generally win. And that's why Rome suffered very heavy defeats in the Black Forest. Now, more than 150 years after the huge defeat by General Varus, that was the general of Augustus' army, Marcus Aurelius chose to try and again go to the river Danube in order to try and secure the area. Now, this column was meant to commemorate his victories, but the truth was a bit different. There were many battles, a few victories, a few defeats. The thing is that after Emperor Marcus Aurelius, what they actually understood is that they had to try and just secure the area, not go above it, over it, because it actually was very costly. Rome lost a lot of soldiers, so it was very tricky. Rome always had huge problems with the Danube. Just think of one thing. When the Western Roman Empire fell in 476 AD, it was because of tribes which came from the Danube River and invaded Rome. When tribes came down from what's today Germany or France, it was very easy for them to get to a city like Rome and just raid it. For example, even before Rome was a republic, we are in 500 BC, 500 before Christ, Rome was actually raided and sacked by Gaulish tribes. The reason why Rome was always at war, the idea was make war before. I mean, in order to defend yourself. That was the idea. I
Right.
mean, attack in order to defend.
And acquire more land.
Yes, if you want. So that was a strange idea. Now.
To je to život, onda je imao nekoga smisla, jel? Ajde. Moja majka, ne znaju, sad mi se razborila po bolnicu, pa sve, pa jedna doktorica stara, Lješko ide po vas, 50
I'll get a picture of that obelisk.
Okay. We can also go closer if you want. This fountain was made by Giacomo da Porta in the end of 1600s. The same architect which built the church of Trinité des Monts we saw above the Spanish Steps.
Right.
By the way, the obelisk, I know it's a small one, but it's actually original.
Oh.
It's one of the 13 obelisks you find in Rome, and it's from the time of Ramses II, one of the most powerful pharaohs of all time in ancient Egypt. So it's from roughly 1500 BC before Christ,
Wow.
which means it's got at least 3,500 years. I know it's small, but it's actually from one of the greatest pharaohs of all time.
So they're just like restoring it?
Yes, probably yes. They've closed it. They closed it so you can see that. I'm not sure whether they're actually cleaning it. I mean, one thing which is actually certain is that monuments in general in Rome, not just in Rome, I guess in any city in the world, have actually suffered from a lot from traffic pollution.
Oh. Really?
Yes. For example, according to what I read, the Column of Marcus Aurelius we saw before actually suffered more damage in the last 100 years than it actually did in the previous 1800 years because of traffic pollution. So yes, it did suffer a lot. But now, we're more interested about the Pantheon,
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go.
which we'll get closer to it.
We get to go inside, right?
Yes, you are. I am not actually, but you are going inside. Now I'll tell
You're
you.
not gonna go in?
No, I'm not. By the way, well, I'll tell you when you are going inside. So let's talk a bit about the monument itself, because this is one of the most interesting buildings in Rome. This is one of those instances in which the writing on the facade doesn't actually tell you which person built it. You can see from the structure that this is actually the mixing of two different monuments. You've got the square one, the so-called portico at the entrance, and then you've got the so-called rotunda in architecture. It's called this way, the round part. Now, let's start from the writing. It tells you M. Agrippa LF Cos tertium fecit. Now, I'll start from the second part, I'll leave the name as for last. LF means Lucius Filius, son of Lucius. Very strangely enough, Latin grammar is much more similar to English grammar than it is to Neo-Latin languages like Italian. Then, fecit means very similar to Italian today, means did it, built it. Cos tertium, very interesting. Cos tertium means consul 3 times. Now, being consul in ancient Rome, we're still in the Roman Republic before the Roman Empire. Being consul in ancient Rome it's a strange comparison, but compare it to being president of the United States of America today. That means who was consul at the time could actually control the Senate. And the only two people which have been consuls for 3 times were this person and Emperor Augustus. So Cost Tertium, consul 3 times, was actually an incredible title if you want. And above all, let's see who the person is. Agrippa. It's Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa. Now, who is he? He was an architect, of course, but he was above all general. Marcus Agrippa is the one that actually defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium, the naval battle. Now, one of the greatest naval battles in history. We are in the Roman Civil War, and we are speaking of roughly, the 2 armies, Marcus Agrippa's one and Mark Antony's one, have each something like 500 ships, something incredible. However, in the battle, only 200 ships on either side actually fought, because it was actually impossible to command all 500 at a time. So Marcus Agrippa actually built the temple initially in 27 BC, 27 before Christ. It was a way to commemorate, if you want, the victory against Mark Antony. However, by the way, when he built it, the temple had normal Greek dimensions, if you want, so it was a rectangle shaped temple. However, in around 80 AD, that means slightly more than 100 years after it was built, there was a fire, and 3/4 of the building were actually burnt, and the building collapsed. That's when Emperor Hadrian comes in. Emperor Hadrian actually built the rotunda, the one part. So you can see Marcus Agrippa at the front, but actually the person who built it, the one part at least, which is the main part, was actually Emperor Hadrian. Now, it's got, by the way, you will see the dome. It's got 43 meters in height and 43 in diameter, approximately, almost the same dimension, with the difference of a few centimeters. It's the by the way, it's probably the first dome ever made, because if you think about it, the Romans took the architecture from the Greeks. So the first part, these temples were normal Greek temples. You can see them, for example, the Pantheon in Greece. And Romans, they normally built the Greek way. However, they started something completely new with the domes, and this is the the oldest dome ever built. So it's round. By the way, even today, after nearly 2,000 years, it's the biggest unreinforced dome. So what does it mean when we say unreinforced? That's because all the domes that came after, which were actually inspired by this one, were reinforced in the sense that, for example, if you think about Michelangelo when he started building the dome in St. Peter's Basilica, if you think about Brunelleschi when did the same in Florence on the Basilica, when they were actually building the domes, the stones started to crack. Therefore, they had to actually put iron chains and iron bars to sustain the structure, otherwise it would actually crumble. Now, the Romans never used any sustainment for the dome, even today. They did something new, however. First, they used volcanic stone, tough and permite stone, because it's actually lighter and easy to shape. So, first of all, they used volcanic stone. And second thing, no less, they actually left a space inside, a space at the height of the dome. They left a hole. It's called the oculus. Oculus, which in Latin actually means sorry, which actually means eye, the eye. Occhio in Italian, the eye. Now they left the oculus for the following reason. There was actual reason, technical reasons for light to come in, maybe, but above all because the thing is that the Romans, when they were building it, apparently they thought that they were actually reaching maximum point in which the dome would not actually crumble. That's why they left a space inside, because they were afraid that the dome would actually crumble with weight. Even though volcanic stone is lighter, this dome actually has more than 5,000 tons in weight, which is a lot. By the way, in terms of the stone, the quantity of stone used, at the base of the dome you've got 6 meters as the base of the width of the stone. As you go up, you finish up with 1 meter. So they did it as to narrow down the quantity of stone. Now, the first thing I should have told you about Pantheon. What does it mean? Pantheon, it's a Greek name again. Comes from the words pan and theon. By the way, we still use them today. Pan for like pan-European, pan-American. That means all, across, everyone. Theon for like theology, the study of religion, basically, or like theocracy, is like the papal state, so a state governed by religion. Theos is actually God. So the Pantheon is actually a temple dedicated to the gods, because remember, we are actually in the Roman Empire. Romans were pagans, they believed in many gods, like the Greeks before them, and therefore this was meant to be a temple dedicated to the gods. By the way, in terms of architecture, you've got still standing 16 columns, of which in theory the 7 grey ones should be coming from Tuscany. Isla d'Elba, it's an island just in front of Tuscany. By the way, remember that the Romans took the marble, above all granite, above all, from Carrara. Carrara marble, even today, is very famous. They actually quarried it there, and this one also comes from there. However, the pink one, above all, very curious enough, it comes from Egypt.
Oh wow!
Very far away. In order to carry these stones, above all, in order to carry the obelisks, because the obelisks are actually much bigger, but in order to carry columns and obelisks, Romans actually had very specific ships, just for shipment. By the way, the thing about Egypt is insane, because I've had a look where the cave is in Egypt, and it's halfway the country. So guess how many thousands of kilometers they had to travel in order to bring the stones from there up to Rome, to the Nile, and then to Mediterranean Sea. A lot, really a lot. Yes, they have. I mean, in terms of course, ancient empires could do that actually, because they had the resources to do it. Maybe we would still have them today, but today we would have a few problems. I mean, as you know, every state, of course, is independent. Therefore, you might have some problems in asking someone else, "Can I take your stones?" A bit tricky. But at the time, which you had very massive empires, they could actually do. It's very ironic. They could actually do that better at that time than today would be able to do that. And the bronze doors are the ones from the age, so that means they are from 27 BC. Historians have doubted about that for a lot of time, because they thought they had been replaced in medieval times, but they actually weren't. What happened is that in medieval times and modern times, they were actually reworked by the papacy, so you've got a few sculptures which were made centuries later, but the bronze doors are actually the original Roman ones. Now, by the way, the Pantheon is probably the first ancient Roman monument to have been Christianized. What does that mean? That means that it was a temple dedicated to the gods. That means a pagan temple. However, it's been made a church, and even today it's a church. And it's also the reason why it's standing today, because generally speaking, at the time of the popes, they used to normally reuse or recycle, inverted commas, the ancient Roman buildings in order to make the churches or papal buildings. For example, the Colosseum, big parts from it are actually missing, because they were reused to build even parts of St. Peter's Basilica. So the ancient Roman buildings were reused by the popes in order to build new buildings. However, the Pantheon actually managed in actually staying still today. Inside are a few tombs. The 4 main ones are Raphael Sanzio, the famous painter from the 16th century. He died at the age of 37, very young. And then above all, we've got the 3 tombs of the kings of Italy. We've got Victor Emmanuel II, Humbert I, and Queen Margaret, which is Humbert I's wife. Now, the Pantheon, that was the plan, was to be used for the other kings of Italy as well. However, In 1946, Italy became a republic. With the defeat of Benito Mussolini during the Second World War, the king was defeated as well, and therefore the kings of Italy, which were no more the kings of Italy, lost the privilege to be buried in Pantheon. However, because even King Victor Emmanuel III and King Humbert II had to be buried in Pantheon, but they weren't. The House of Savoy, which is the royal Italian house, still exists today, but they are no more the kings of Italy. In terms of what's the nowadays conception of Pantheon, Pantheons still exist today in the world. For example, in Lisbon, you've got the Pantheon National, National Pantheon. In Paris, you've got the Pantheon National, National Pantheon again. In those buildings, normally, and you've also got, I don't want to be wrong, one in London, in those buildings are generally used as royal tombs or as tombs for notable people, generally speaking poets or writers, or even architects sometimes. So, the conception of a pantheon, ironically speaking, the name means actually temple dedicated to all the gods. The name was actually kept, however, the conception was actually completely changed, reused into one dedicated as a tomb, if you want, either as a royal tomb or as a tomb for notable people. Not so much in Italy as in other countries, paradoxically. So I guess, yes.
Let me ask you a question. On our tickets, when we get in here, can we go directly in, or do we have to stay?
No, I'll tell you. You've got to actually go in the queue, which I hoped was a bit smaller. Is the central queue, was told. So you'll have to wait a bit.
You want us to go and start standing in the line now? You want us to start standing in the line now?
Better, because I was told that you've got to go in your time frame. Excuse me.
try one more over there. Probably. There's number 4. Go to the center and move about. I know, it's as close as you can get it. That's a sunroof. Are you guys ready?